there's one concept that's central to good governance, it's trust. I thought I'd talk about that a little bit and some key elements in a governance framework and the role that boards can play in ensuring trust. So the first element is between owners and the board. And owners in whatever form they might be, shareholders, members of a company limited by guarantee, shareholding ministers, in the case of a public sector entity, put a board of directors in place because they trust them fundamentally to ensure that the objectives of the company are achieved in a sustainable way. Of course, if owners lose that trust in the board, typically they'll revert to the very important power they reserve for themselves, and that's the power to remove the directors. So ensuring that level of trust is pretty key, and through open, timely, transparent communication on company performance by the board back to the owners is important in that regard. The second place where trust is really important is within the board itself. So each director has to trust their other peer directors. They need to trust that they're going to bring their skills and experience to bear. They're going to be committed. They're going to be ethical. And I've worked with a number of boards recently where this issue of trust has come up between directors. What I usually see is when trust breaks down, it results in things like a poor dynamic, factions forming, director performance starting to wane, and the director becoming self-centred on the board's performance as opposed to looking at the broader company performance. Ultimately, directors might decide to resign because they don't find that a satisfying environment in which to work. There also needs to be trust between the board and the CEO. Of course, the board trusts the CEO is going to report on company performance in a timely, open, transparent way. If they feel that the CEO is not doing that, usually it starts with performance discussions, and ultimately it might result in the removal of the CEO. Conversely, the CEO's got to trust the board, I might add, and if the CEO doesn't trust the board, the CEO might make their own decision as to their tenure with the company. And finally, stakeholders need to trust the board and the broader organisation. And stakeholders can be really broad: employees, customers, clients, regulators, funders, investors, society at large. This is an important discussion at the moment when we talk about ESG, or environmental, social and governance credentials of companies. And so boards should be thinking about, how do we ensure that our company maintains the trust of our various stakeholders who are so important to our company being able to achieve its objectives as well. So hopefully there's some good food for thought there in how trust is important, and maybe your board can reflect on how it looks at creating trusting environments in those various elements of its good governance framework that I outlined.